Progress Wrestling, chapters 40 through 43, or in real-time terms, December of 2016 into January of 2017. You know what that means. NXT UK is here, everybody. Come on. Come on. Only good things. Only good things in the future. Let's get it. Well, we got a lot happening this month. We got 4 chapters. We got plenty of title matches. We got title changes. We got debuts. We got heel turns. We got musical chairs. There's a lot going on. So you better stick right there and take it all inside of you. Hey, it's the Apron Bump Podcast.
Yeah. The hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. Yeah, back.
You hear that, everybody? My gobble noise, because it's Thanksgiving. Hello, everybody. I did not plan to start the episode like that, but that's just the noise that came out of me. It's the noise that came out of me. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I'm your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle. Progress Wrestling chapters 40 through 43. We got 4 chapters to talk about, gang. It's been a while since I hopped on here and talked some of the progress wrestling. We did I believe it was a hot takes episode in place of the last, what would have been the last review. So we're bundling up 4 chapters here, and honestly, I kind of like it. I think I kind of like it, just from based on, you know, how I was able to watch the shows and what I think we're going to talk about today. I think this might be more conducive to do it more chapters than not. We're playing around with things. I'm still going, you know, basically, if there's one show a month for Progress, we'll just cover that show, and that's it, which I believe in February of 2016, chapter 44, that'll be a standalone episode. But if there's multiple shows within a month, we're going to cover them in more of a granular, less granular, more coarse. I don't know. More just broad. This episode's going to be very broad. It's going to be loosey-goosey. We're going to hop back and forth between things. I'll throw the cards in the description, and I'll highlight them here, actually. Let me just pull these bad boys up. We got Chapter 40 coming at us, making their debut in Sheffield, England. Shout out Ruthless Aggression era, boys. Chapter 40 in Sheffield, England on December 11th, 2016. And then we got Chapter 41 coming back at us from the Electric Ballroom in Camden in London, England. On December 30th for unboxing. And we got Chapter 42 coming at us, making their debut in Birmingham, England, the West Midlands, where the fuck that means, on January 15th. And then we got Chapter 43 coming back to their home base, the Electric Ballroom in London, on January 29th. So roughly 2 months of action here. Shout out, by the way, we're going to talk about all the individuals, not all the individual stuff, but I want to shout out Chapter 41 in particular. Unboxing is what the title is. And I was very confused. I'm not confused. It's a couple days after Christmas. I get it. But I didn't know if that had any bearing on what the show was. And Chapter 41, Unboxing, and it's my understanding that this would be like a yearly thing. It's a mystery card. So there's no matches announced beforehand, which kind of sounds weird, you know, right out the gate. But in watching Chapter 41, I could see why they brought this concept back, because it was fun. Like, the crowd didn't know who was coming out. There were some surprises, big reactions for people that they didn't think would be there, but were there. So the concept seems fun. It seems fun. I'm wondering if like a WWE or an AEW could make that happen on some scale at some point. Probably not. I don't know if that would translate, but it's a fun concept. So I liked it. Just wanted to shout out that real quick. But where are we at, everybody? It's been a while. So we talked about British wrestling. Let's recap. Let's reset. Actually, first, before we reset, you might be tuning in for the first time. You might not even know what Progress Wrestling is, or you might know of it, but you might have, seen a match here or two, maybe a clip or two here and there. Well, if you want to hop along this journey. I have covered every progress chapter from the very first chapter, chapter 1, all the way through now to where we're at chapter 43. 43 chapters of British wrestling, and you can hop along that journey. You can go to apronbump.com, you can click on the episodes tab, and you can select Progress Wrestling. That'll bring you to all of the Progress Wrestling chapters that I have covered, and you can just click on that link. You can click on the link in the description as well. It'll take you there, asking you if you want more progress. Click here. You click there. You could select whatever app you want to listen or watch on, if it's YouTube, and binge away. It's a fun old time. There's a lot of fun. First of all, it's fun just to see early iterations of guys that are huge nowadays, namely like Will Ospreay. You got Adam Cole is here. Malachi Black. Finn Balor makes an appearance here, which we'll touch on. Of course, your Zack Sabre Juniors, your British Strong Style, et cetera, et cetera. There's a ton of talent here, ton of talent. So if you want to see those early iterations, or if you just want to follow along the stories, there's a lot of really fun, engaging stories that Progress gives us throughout the years, especially in these early years. There's guys that I personally didn't like. I didn't give a fuck about Jimmy Havoc when he showed up in AEW. Couldn't give two fucks. But in following his story, it's just one of the most engaging parts of at least these early Progress days. Will Ospreay he has a great story going on, which we're going to touch on in this episode as well. So, among others. So hop along the train, binge away those episodes. If you haven't tried them out before, maybe you skip the Progress episodes, I highly recommend give it a try. Give it a try. Well, you're listening to this. You're already doing that. So appreciate you. But anything else I need to plug? Follow me at Apron Bump everywhere. Join the Discord. You know the deal. Rate, review, leave a comment, whatever the fuck. Let's get into it, baby. Let's get into it. Like I said, this is going to be kind of a loosey-goosey episode. Where am I at with European wrestling? Or where are we at? Because you're along this journey with me. So chapter 39 was the last chapter that we cover here. And that is where we crowned a new Progress champion because Mark Haskins had to vacate due to neck injury. So we had basically a mini tournament there. And I covered this with Callum Leslie, who is on the call for a lot of these shows. And we talked about it. We talked through all the matches. And ultimately, Pete Dunne walked out as the new Progress champion. Now, we're all accustomed to Pete Dunne. He's killing it on Raw nowadays. But this was really the coming out party at Chapter 39 for Pete Dunne. He hadn't really sniffed the world title, but he walked out the world champion. Tyler Bate turned heel and joined Trent Seven and Pete Dunne. And lo and behold, we got British Strong Style. So that is a big thread running through these 4 chapters, is basically establishing this faction. And I think they did a really good job. Personally, they gave him motivations, they gave him a backstory, and a few big wins as well. So high profile matches, and we were set up for chapter 44 as well. So that's basically the gist. We're going to talk about the ongoing tournament to crown the first ever Progress Women's Championship. We got a couple Atlas title matches. We got a pretty dramatic character shift in one Will Ospreay, which we'll touch on. We got a lot of debuts from other companies, which let me touch on that for a second. I feel like I haven't really talked a lot about the other British wrestling that I've been watching. Some good, some not so good. So basically, I am in chronological, along with this timeline. I'm also watching OTT, which is Over the Top Wrestling in Ireland. I'm also watching Rev Pro, which is another wrestling promotion, probably the biggest wrestling promotion in England. A little bit of WXW, mainly just the tournaments, the 16 karat gold, the tag leagues and stuff like that. So I'm watching these because British wrestling scene at this point, 2016 into 2017, is so fucking fun, dude. Huge. I mean, it's just exploding. Marty Scurll is fucking everywhere. He just joined Ring of Honor. He's now the Ring of Honor television champion. Zack Sabre Jr. is, I don't know if he's in Japan yet, but he's about to be. Will Ospreay is already killing it in Japan. Won the Battle of the Super Juniors. And of course, you got the NXT UK tournament kicking off here in January. So overlapping, I guess, the last 2 chapters of this episode. So British wrestling is exploding, and it's really fun to watch. And it's, by the way, as of recording this, we're in the November, December months of 2024, and this time of year is typically pretty slow for wrestling, namely like the big promotions, WWE, AEW. And as of recording this, I'm seeing a lot of sentiment online of how wrestling's pretty boring right now. Not a lot interesting going on. And which I kind of agree, which is why I'm blessed to have a retro wrestling podcast where I don't really need I have more time to watch the old stuff. But dude, hop on to Progress. Like, even watch the old stuff. I know that a lot of people, they can't stomach Jimmy Havoc or Marty Scurll. Like, I get that, but there's so much good in these old days of Progress, which, by the way, use the promo code in the description to get half off Demand Progress Plus. But so do that. There's so much wrestling around the world, which is why I review these shows, just to kind of highlight, wrestling all over the world. There's so much fun stuff to watch, past and present. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at. But what was I talking about? Oh, other promotions, OTT. I don't know how much I've talked about it. OTT is a weird one. It's the early days. It's all vibes. OTT. Let me just put it that way. A lot of it is the crowd interaction. You got a lot of local guys, which they're entertaining to the crowd. The crowd loves them. There's like a lot of dancers and drunks, and like these are the characters, is what I'm saying. A lot of just like caricatures of Irish people, like lads from the Flats and Martina and fucking Paul Tracy. Like, not all of it's good, but you also got your Pete Dunnes. I'm about to encounter a match between Ricochet and Will Ospreay that happened over there. So it's at this point in time, OTT is getting really good. Rev Pro's Rev Pro. They're the super show company, basically. So you're going to see a lot of international talent there. So you get a lot of good stuff there as well. WXW, I tried to keep up with on a more regular basis, but they didn't get English commentary until I guess around this time, right? Outside of their like major tournaments. So it was kind of hard to follow the storylines. And to be honest with you, the only people worth watching, in my opinion, are guys that you'll see here in Progress and stuff like that. So, but we got some debuts from those companies, which is why I kind of bring that up. We got some OTT guys, some WXW guys popping in here, which in watching these timelines, like if I was just watching Progress, right, and I had no idea of these other companies, I would have been like, who the fuck is Kings of the North? I don't give who these guys. This guy's a stupid glove on. Don't care about him. But I like damn near marked out when I saw them. Urine Simmons. Come on now, but we'll get to that. But let's get into this, baby. Let's dive in. Let's take a bite and see how it tastes. Why don't we start out with Will Ospreay? Huh? What do you say? Let's do that. Very hot topic nowadays. Will Ospreay killing it in AEW. Champion there already. I mean, he's the guy. He's the guy right here. So let's see some humble beginnings. Not really humble or beginnings here, but early days of Will Ospreay. We're seeing him transition before our eyes. Up to this point, he's been the plucky high flyer coming out to AC/DC, shoot the thrill, like just hyping up the crowd, doing a lot of flips. That Will Ospreay, right? We all know that Will Ospreay. But here in 2016, going into 2017, our boy Billy Ospreay is getting a little big for his britches, getting a little perturbed. This Will Ospreay, a little salty. And for good reason, because here in 2016, so we're finishing out 2016 here at chapter, I think 41 was chapter 41 was the last 2016 show. Spoiler alert. In 2016 in Progress, he went 0-8. 0 wins, 8 losses for Will Ospreay in Progress in 2016. He came into the year as champion. Beat Jimmy Havoc. Later half of 2015, he defended the title against like Mark Andrews, Zach Gibson, Flash Morgan Webster. But beginning of 2016, he lost the title to Marty Scurll. Then he lost the Thunder Bastard match to fail at getting another shot at the title. He also lost a rematch to Marty Scurll at WrestleCon, so it would actually be 0-9 if you took that into account. He lost to Mark Haskins in a number one contenders match. He lost to Zack Sabre Jr. He lost to Swerve Strickland. He lost to Matt Riddle. He loses to Adam Cole here at Chapter 40. He lost to Jimmy Havoc at Chapter 41, which we'll get into those matches because there's a lot of story within those matches. But also, separate to Progress, he also just lost to Vader in Rev Pro. So not a great year in Europe, at least for Will Ospreay. And just the gradual crumbling of Will Ospreay through 2016 in Progress has been a sight to see. That match with Swerve Strickland a few chapters ago was very interesting because he almost turned heel there. He I forget what exactly, he faked an injury and then capitalized on it to try to beat Swerve, but then Swerve ended up coming back and beating him. But then Will Ospreay apologized to the crowd after the match. He's like, "Yeah, fuck you. I got." He didn't say "fuck you." He was like, "Yeah, bro, I deserved it, mate." Oh, he wasn't saying "bro." I'm trying to do my Will Ospreay accent, but I can't. But he apologized. He's like, "Never mind, forget that. I'm not a heel. I'm still a babyface." Went on to face Matt Riddle at Chapter 39. Lost there to fail at earning the vacated title. And then he would go on to lose against Adam Cole, Jimmy Havoc, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, he's flirted with turning on the fans. He's flirted with changing his identity, his morals, his ethos, his pathos, his logos, all that stuff, right? And it was tested here at Chapter 40. And perhaps, I was going to say match of these 4 chapters, but I don't know if I agree with that. It's up there, though. It's fun. It's fun. Adam Cole versus Will Ospreay. Let's get into it, baby. Chapter 40. So both guys come up. Which, by the way, let me touch on Adam Cole here for a second. What the fuck happened? What happened to Adam Cole? Why is he not awesome anymore? Probably that foot injury, ankle injury, the terrible spray tan. What is Adam doing now, guys? Did he just jump in a fucking vat of mimosa and then walk out for his matches? How have spray tans gotten worse over time? MJF always has a terrible spray tan. Pete Dunne always looks fucking yellow out there. It's just almost across the board. Why have spray tans gotten worse? How has the technology changed? Somebody needs to go up to Hulk. Hulk Hogan knew how to spray tan. Sometimes he went a bit overboard, but it looked good for what he was going for, at least. It looked tan, at least. Adam Cole just looks orange now. It's hopefully it's nothing like jaundice related or like something with his liver or like some other health issue. But there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. But it was striking here seeing Adam Cole looking healthy. His physique looked about as good as it's ever looked. He did not look orange. And his ability in the ring was just as good as he looked because it was striking to me how much better Adam Cole here was at the end of 2016 than he is in modern day 2024. And I'm struggling to figure out what it is. It's almost like his offense. It's like he has more confidence in what he's doing in the ring here in 2016 than he does now. He also works a lot better as a heel, in my opinion, even though he's like one of the nicest fucking dudes. If you ever watch like his Twitch streams or whatever, he's a nice guy, but he definitely works better as a heel. And here I think he had just joined Bullet Club. I know he's in Bullet Club at this point. I don't know at what point he joined, but it's Bullet Club represented by Adam Cole versus Chaos represented by Will Ospreay. So Will's rubbing shoulders with Okada over there in Japan, whereas Adam Cole is in is this a good version of the Bullet Club? I can't remember. I don't really remember who's in it at this point. I think the Young Bucks are a part of it. So we're doing that thing. But fun match. Really fun match. Just explosive stuff from both guys. It's pretty much what you would imagine. I got to be honest with you guys. Like, I like watching Adam Cole matches like in the moment to a certain point. Adam Cole, I think, has an issue of trying to make every match epic. And that's not like people will hear that and be like, "What, you just want to have a bad match?" No, that's not what I'm saying. But the kickouts at one, the mindless finisher kickouts, like I was just talking about Samoa Joe versus CM Punk a couple weeks ago, and how I was drawn into the match based on the fact that they weren't using finisher kickouts to make it awesome. Here is the polar opposite. I mean, all the super kicks everywhere. I think Adam Cole did that suplex brainbuster onto his knee like 3 or 4 times in this match. Panama Sunrise, at least one for a 2 count. So it was fun in the moment. Let me just walk through my notes here. So Adam Cole, in the beginning of the match, he clearly has Will scouted. I think they've wrestled a lot in Ring of Honor already at this point. So Adam's countering all of the high flying. He catches Will trying to do a leapfrog. He catches him into an Ushigoroshi, knee to the neck. Later in the match, Will's like firing up. He's doing all of his spinning kicks, and at one point, he tries to kip up from the ground, but Adam immediately kicks his knee and knocks him back down, right into a Shining Wizard, 2 count, right into another Shining Wizard from the side. So he like clips him in the side of the head, just bang, 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 just chaining moves together. Awesome stuff. That's where Adam Cole thrives, I feel like. Will Ospreay comes back, goes for an Os cutter, but Adam Cole counters it with a super kick out of midair, which was just beautifully timed. Follows that super kick up with a Panama Sunrise for a 2 count. And it's at this point I'm like, all right, like, do moves mean anything anymore? Like a super kick out of midair followed by a Canadian Destroyer should end a match. Especially after all of the Shining Wizards and the last shots he did it before that. It was a little much for my taste, but the crowd was loving it. The energy was high, so I can't say this was a bad match, but I think it's marred by a lot of the bad instincts that Adam Cole has in his matches, in my opinion. Will Ospreay comes back, hits an imploding 450, which looked really good, but gets a 2 count. And you can see here, he gets the 2 count, and he like grabs the ref by the collar and almost punches him. But then Will, let's go, and he like sits down in the corner. He's like, "Oh, well, what have I done, bruv?" And so he's doing that whole thing. It was a little campy, but so you see Will crumbling here, which goes back to this overall story that's playing out. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm not gonna turn. We're fine. Everything's fine. Adam Cole proceeds to hit Will with like, I think 17,000 super kicks. He then pins Will Ospreay after one big super kick while Will was on his knees. Adam makes the pin. 1 kick out at 1, by God, bruv. So we're already doing this kick out at 1 business at the end of 2016. Will fires up, handspring, but gets super kicked out of the handspring. Adam Cole hits the last shot, a patella driver, which is that brain buster onto his knee, and gets the win that way. So I wish I would have like kept the count of how many Shining Wizards, how many super kicks, how many patella drivers, how many pile drivers it took to put away Will. But eventually Adam Cole was able to do it and gets the win. So Adam Cole beats Will Ospreay here. And no, it was a good match. It did just feel like they were doing spots for the sake of spots at some point until they hit their time. So there wasn't a lot of ebbs and flows to it. There weren't a ton of crescendos. A lot of this match was Adam Cole controlling it and Will trying to fight back. But ultimately it was just like, here's a big move. Here's a 2 count. Here's a big move. Here's a 1 count. It was fine. I don't want to act like I'm shitting on this match, but yeah, it was an Adam Cole match. We'll put it that way. So Will Ospreay takes another loss here. But maybe chapter 41, maybe the next chapter, he'll redeem himself. Maybe he'll end 2016 with a victory. Because going into chapter 41, which is the last show of 2016, Will Ospreay has not had a win in progress. This is his last chance. Who is it against? None other than maybe his most bitter rival, Jimmy Havoc. Jimmy Havoc versus Will Ospreay, which is a matchup that has defined progress up to this point. Chapter 20 is where Will beat Jimmy Havoc for the title, culminating a several months, if not years, long feud. I've talked to guys that were watching Progress at the time and still are, and they say that that's probably the best feud ever in Progress history. So Havoc versus Ospreay is a huge deal here to close out 2016. So Jimmy Havoc comes out, and then Will Ospreay comes out. And he comes out very stoic, which is very striking because he's always so high energy. He's, waving his arms at the crowd. He's everybody get up on their feet. Yeah, shoot the thrill, like that kind of thing. And I'm not sure if he's stoic because he's about to face his most bitter rival, or if he's stoic because he knows the gravity of this match and what it means for his Progress career. This is his last chance. He needs to cap off this year with a win. He can't go winless in 2016. So I think it's a combination of that. But he gets in the ring. And the camera work is great here because you can see they're panning in on him when he's in the ring while they're doing the ring intros and whatnot. And he hears Jimmy Havoc getting a lot of cheers. Jimmy Havoc, he's turned a new leaf. Huge crowd favorite at this point. To the point where they're booing Ospreay even. So you can see when Havoc gets the cheers on his intro, you see the look on Ospreay's face. He's like, bruv. He's just like very stoic, very emotionless, a scowl even on his face. And then he gets introduced and the crowd boos him. Now he hasn't done anything bad at this point. He's almost cracked a few times over the past few months, but he's fine. Everything's fine. But he's still getting booed. There's one point where he's getting booed. There's one lone streamer that gets thrown into the ring. Will catches it and then throws it out. Like, it's just incredible. You could not have written that any better. Because you know how people do. They throw all the streamers into the ring when somebody gets introduced that they love. One streamer, Will Ospreay, catches it, says, "I don't want none of your streamer," and he just throws it out of the ring. It was so cold, so badass. Match gets underway. Immediately at the bell, it's a brawl. They're fighting all over the ringside area, throwing each other into chairs, into ring posts. They get in the ring. Actually, before anything happens, the bell rings. Jimmy Havoc sprints at Ospreay and hits him with a Hurricane Rana, sending him to the outside, which immediately establishes the change in dynamic that this feud has seen. The first, chapters 10 through 20, you got Jimmy Havoc out here trying to decapitate Will Ospreay, and that's not a metaphor, not a euphemism, it's not even an idiom. Well, I'm not saying that because Jimmy Havoc was trying to clothesline him really hard. No, he had an axe, like a real axe, and he had Ospreay's head over the bottom rope, and he was threatening to cut his head off. That's what Jimmy Havoc was. Now Jimmy Havoc's getting cheered. He's the king of the Goths, everybody. But it's just so interesting how that's completely flipped now, 20 chapters or so later, which is the story here. You got, they're brawling on the outside. Will does this like crazy spear into Havoc, knocking him into the chairs ringside. In the ring, I wrote here that Jimmy Havoc hurts his knee on a teabag driver. Is that what he calls it? Yeah, that is what it's like the dude buster, right? Or it's like a dead eye almost, but you like hook the legs and then drive him down. I think Konosuke Takeshita does it. I think he was calling it the teabag driver, which is fun. So, but Havoc hurts his knee doing this, which Havoc recently returned from a knee injury. So it's at this point where Will starts to attack the knee, which is very unlike Will Ospreay. He's all about the flash. He's all about giving the crowd what they want, doing all the fancy moves, getting the crowd hype. But now it's just all business. All business, Ospreay. He's beating on the knee. He's doing submissions. He's stomping on the knee. At one point, Will Ospreay pulls his knee pads down and just brutalizes the ribs of Havoc with him. Really physical and angry stuff from Ospreay, which is a fun little twist to his typical match style, I guess. Will hits an Os cutter, 2 count. Jimmy Havoc fights back. They go back and forth, trading finishers or countering finishers, near fall after near fall. But ultimately, Jimmy Havoc hits the acid rainmaker and gets the 1-2-3. Brutal, by the way. I mean, Ospreay, he got hit with this lariat and then lands right on his neck after. Brutal stuff. Very convincing finish. So Jimmy Havoc beats Will Ospreay here. So Will Ospreay is officially gone winless in 2016 in Progress Wrestling. So it's after the match. Jimmy Havoc, he grabs the mic. He's like, "Oh, mate, I think you broke my ribs. I probably deserved it, though." Havoc goes on to say that him and Will, they built this company. They established Progress. They made it what it is today. Havoc looks at Ospreay and he says, and I quote, "I need help with 3 cunts." Which he's referencing the world champion Pete Dunne, as well as Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, British Strong Style. They cost Havoc the title at Chapter 39. Havoc is the number 1 contender at this point. He's like, "I can't do it myself. I need help. You saw what we could do against each other. Imagine what we could do together as a team." So they shake hands. Will Ospreay gets up, begrudgingly shakes his hand. Low blow! Oh, by God, Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay with a kick right to Jimmy Havoc's stupid goth balls. Levels him with it, beats him down, brings him to the stage, beats him up on the stage. Jimmy Havoc starts to fight back, but somebody comes out from behind the curtain. Paul Robinson comes out, former partner of Will Ospreay in the Swords of Essex, also a former faction member of Jimmy Havoc. Paul Robinson comes out, levels Jimmy Havoc, kicks him down the stairs of the stage, brings him back in the ring. Ospreay and Robinson are back together. The Swords of Essex have reunited. Paul Robinson, he doesn't just come back. No. He comes out with a barbed wire bat. Him and Ospreay take turns leveling Havoc with this barbed wire bat in the ring. Rib shots after rib shot. Robinson hits him with a brutal curb stomp. Will Ospreay hits Jimmy Havoc with his version of the Rainmaker, which is basically a Rainmaker, but instead of a lariat, it's like a cyclone kick, which sounds kind of convoluted, but it looks pretty sweet. So they both Paul Robinson, Will Ospreay, the Swords of Essex, leave Jimmy Havoc lane. They're both wearing the black gloves, which I'm sure is symbolic of something. I guess that's the Sword of Essex thing. I don't know. But the closing shot is Jimmy Havoc laying in the ring with Will Ospreay holding this barbed wire bat with Paul Robinson by his side. Very dramatic character shift for Will Ospreay. It's been building all year, but it's come to a head. Has turned heel. There's a bit of a cunt. And yeah. So very interested to see how this plays out. I mean, completely shifting the dynamic of what this feud was 20 chapters ago. It's very interesting to see how it's played out. So that's pretty much where we stand with the Will Ospreay story, because he doesn't show up in chapter 42 or 43. So that's where we're left with that. So very interesting stuff. We'll keep an eye on that going forward. But while we're talking about him, Paul Robinson also has a match at the next show, chapter 42. Against who? Well, first of all, before we say who Paul Robinson's opponent is here, I think the first thing we got to do is hit that jingle, Bartholomew. New faces, new faces. Here's some people that haven't been previously on these shows that we're talking about for the first time. New faces, new faces. I haven't seen these people on this particular timeline before, but now they're here now, so they're new. That's what new means, new faces. Oh, man. Everybody loves it. I get a lot of fan mail being like, Kyle, more new faces. More new faces. Well, I'm giving it to you. Because we got a lot here. Let's start it off here with Rockstar Spud. Otherwise known as Drake Maverick from WWE. We got Spud here taking on Paul Robinson. This was Chapter 42, which was their debut in Birmingham, which I guess is where Spud is from. So we got the hometown boy coming out to Living on a Prayer, which seems like a cheat code. Like everybody's going to fucking sing to that, right? But I mean, Spud's got tights with the Progress logo on it. He's got a leather jacket with the Progress logo on the back. I mean, he is hamming it up for the Progress faithful here. I like it though. I've always liked Rockstar Spud. He always felt like a very first of all, he's fun to watch. He's like almost like the modern day Spike Dudley a little bit. Like he's really good at getting his ass kicked, but he also has great fire, and he just always came off as very hungry to me, still to this day. So love me some Spud. Paul Robinson's a cunt. So sorry, I talk British wrestling and the word cunt just comes flying out of my mouth. Speaking of flying out of my mouth, Paul Robinson, and he's beating the shit out of Robbo in this match. I mean, before the bell, he attacks him, Pearl Harbor job, beats him all around the ring, puts him in the ring. Spud is on the mat. Paul Robinson does his patented loogie to the chest of Spud, where it's so fucking gross, dude. He hucks a loogie and he spits it. It's like a string of spit coming down from his mouth, and then it just drops on Spud's chest, and then Robbo spreads it all in his chest hair. It's fucking disgusting. But eventually, oh, by the way, Spud, who was wrestling in a bow tie, or did he? I forget. Was he? I don't think he was wrestling in the bow tie, but I think Robbo had a bow tie, playing off, because Spud is big in TNA at this point. Or maybe he's coming off of his run there, where he was basically the manager of EC3, and Spud always had the suits with the bow tie, that was his thing. So Robbo takes a bow tie, puts it in Spud's mouth, just disrespecting the poor boy. Spud recovers, sees the bow tie, and it fires him up. He takes the bow tie, he crumbles it, he throws it to the mat, he hulks up, throws Robbo out of the ring, 3 suicide dives, puts him in the ring, jumping knee, neck breaker, elbow off the top. Spud takes his belt off, which has studs on it, whips Robbo with it, and then Robbo, low blow, disqualification. We got a DQ finish here. Robbo continues to beat down Spud after the match with a steel chair, hits him with a stomp. But then out comes Jimmy Havoc. A little late there, Jimmy, but Havoc comes out because him and Spud still hate each other. The aforementioned beating with a barbed wire bat, plus their brutal street fight at, I think it was chapter 21 or so. So they have a bitter rivalry going on. Havoc comes out, runs Robbo out. Havoc helps Spud up, gives him a nod of approval. And then, so that's where we're at. We have our Undertaker Orlando Jordan moment here, where Spud gets the nod from the big dog here in Progress. And fun seeing Spud here. That was his only appearance on these chapters, but I hope we see more of him. I know he joins WWE at some point, like everybody else, but like I said, he always feels really genuine, and I want to see him succeed. He's easy to root for sure. But New Faces is not over. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not over. We have more new faces. Talking about those other European promotions in the beginning, let's talk about a WXW star over there in Germany, I think to this day, if I'm correct. Jurn Simmons. Jurn Simmons. So if you're not familiar with Jurn, aesthetically, I guess you can just Google what he looks like, but he's when I saw him, I was like, this is kind of like a beefier version of Triple H, maybe. It's like if you combined Triple H, Drew McIntyre, and Otis. It's like if you mess those three guys together, Urine Simmons comes out of whatever you created him in. Big dude, pretty jacked. You could tell he's a guy that he like works out, but he also loves chicken tenders. You know what I'm saying? He has one of those kind of bodies, but he's a jacked guy. Like I said, very Drew McIntyre-esque in his aesthetic. But look, the match is what it is. Urine Simmons faces Roy Johnson, big wavy. The match is what it is. Urine Simmons ends up winning with a very it's funny, I was comparing him to Drew McIntyre, like as I was watching this match, and then he hits him with a Claymore and then a pile driver for the win. So Urine Simmons beats Roy Johnson here. Very basic match. But the story here was the entrance. The entrance. Roy Johnson, he's a very charismatic guy. Comes out with the blinky glasses, very Naomi-esque, comes out. But then Urine Simmons comes out. Now, folks, I'm going to play a clip here of his entrance. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, if I'm able to not get it pulled down, I'll include the visuals, right? So if you're watching on YouTube, you can watch it. If you're just listening to the audio, perfectly fine. Just understand that the duration of this clip that I'm playing, he has not left the stage. Like Urine Simmons comes out of the curtain, walks out onto the stage, and then proceeds to pose and gyrate his hips for, you know what? I'm going to put a stopwatch on it. I meant to do this earlier, but we're going to do it right now. So if you're listening in audio land, just know that this entire clip that I'm playing, he does not leave the stage. He does not start walking to the ring during the entire time. Let's put a stopwatch on it. Let's hit play on this bad boy. So Roy Johnson's out there. Who's his opponent? Urine Simmons. Here we go. Oh, is it Urine Simmons or Hunter Hearst Helmsley? All right, he's on the stage. I'm going to hit the stopwatch. Now you're looking at this guy. Very laissez, very blasé. Very laissez-faire. Doesn't care. He's yawning. He's got a cape on. He's looking very regal. You hear the music? This guy's all business here. He's rubbing his belly a little bit, running his fingers through his stomach hair. All right, let's get to it. Let's walk to that ring there, Urine. All right, ready to wrestle. Whoa. Nope. Whoa, that's... All right. This guy is all bulge. I mean, look at... just the way he swivels his hips. This guy was built for hip swiveling. I bet this guy could hula hoop for hours. Still on the stage. Roy Johnson's there looking confused. What's this guy doing? Callum Leslie's over there. He's looking a little turned on, I think. Can't blame him. All right, just when you think he's about to walk to the ring, nope, more posing. Got the old Arnold pose with the one bicep and the other arm straightened. All right, double biceps. Still shaking the hips while he's doing all of this, right? Whoa. All right. Powerful. All right, more double biceps. Pans to the crowd, and they are very confused. A lot of people have turned the opposite way, like, oh, he's probably gonna start walking, but nope. Roy Johnson's now sitting in the ring. He's not having it. Still posing. Roy Johnson's doing push-ups. Gotta keep warm. All right. Let's walk to the ring now, Urine. Nope. We're gonna keep gyrating. Yeah. Oh. Nope. I thought it was over. I thought it was over. Yep. Still doing this double bicep, whatever this pose is. Still shaking the hips. All right, now we're going. Nope. Oh, nope. I thought the breakdown would be where he comes to the ring, but now he's air guitaring. Now he's air guitaring to one side of the stage, now walking to the other side, walking back to the middle, still shaking the hips. He's grinding on the rail there at the top of the stage. All right. That railing is now pregnant. He takes one step off, but he's like, no, I'm not done yet. We are at 3 minutes and 15 seconds. There we go. Nope. One more gesture to the crowd. All right. Pointing at his ear. Let me hear ya. This guy's very hairy, by the way. And there he is. All right. 3 minutes and 39 seconds. This man stood on the stage and just did shit. Like I'm saying, the perfect amalgamation between Triple H, Drew McIntyre, and Otis. You have the physique, you have the vanity of Drew and Gamer, but you got just the lust and the visceral passion in the lower region of Otis. So, yeah. So that's where we stand. So that was really it's fun. I was expecting like a serious dude. He comes out. I don't know what that fucking song is called. The old Triple H music, right? But nope, it is anything but. I felt like I was at a strip club watching him. So, yeah. But then he wins the match and it's fine, I guess. But we're still in New Faces, gang. New Faces is not over. Don't worry. I heard the murmurs over there. You're like, Kyle, please let there be more New Faces. Well, there are. Let's talk about the Kings of the North, everybody. The Kings of the North. A tag team comprised of Damian Corvin and Bonesaw. This is not Macho Man. So we got the Kings of the North taking on the London Riots here at Chapter 43. Not a ton to say about this. It was fun to see the Kings of the North. OTT is very banter heavy. A lot of dancing and joking around and just overall tomfoolery. Kings of the North are very it's very striking when they come on the screen because they're all business. They're serious, they're brawlers. Just thick brawlers, which is kind of what the London Riots are in Progress. So it was a fun matchup. And as you might guess, a fun brawl, a lot of brawling on the outside. The crowd is really getting on, I think it's Bonesaw. He has this one really glittery red glove on. Like, his wrestling attire is pretty generic, like black tights, black boots, black elbow pads. But then he has this really goofy red glove, which I don't know what the significance. I'm sure there's some cultural significance to that, but or maybe there's not, but the crowd's making a lot of Michael Jackson chants toward him, as they should. But ultimately, the London Riots win with the district line double power bomb to Bonesaw, and then they catch Corvin out of midair with a slingshot spear for the win. So Kings of the North looked good. They looked like killers for the time they had in control in this match, but had a couple near falls, got a lot of offense in, but the Riots are they're the foundation of Progress at this point. At least one of the pillars. So Riots win. They were I think they were on every chapter. I think they might have been the only act on every chapter here. So they win and they keep looking strong. Not much else to say about that. What other New Faces? Hardest part of the ring. What other New Faces are here? Well, let me tell you. Have you guys ever heard of Ringkampf? Yeah? If you haven't, I bet you've heard of Imperium, because that's who these fellas are. Walter and Axel Dieter Jr. are here, making their debut as a tag team. Now, we've seen Walter a few times in the past in Progress under the name Big Daddy Walter, which, as the name suggests, he's very like he's a big dude, right? Brawler, a powerhouse. He wants to win matches, but ultimately he's just here to have a good time, coming out to the bibbity bibbity boop bop bibbity, like I don't, whatever his music was, right? Some country bumpkin bullshit. Comes out, he's wearing a hoodie, like, all right, yeah, doing the whole stretching, getting in the ring, tugging on the ropes, just big guy wrestler. But man, what a transition in character. We have basically the Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser that you see on Raw is basically who shows up here. This is so Ludwig Kaiser was going by I think is his real name, Axel Dieter Jr. Let me check on that. What's his real name here? It is, his real name's Marcel Bartel? Interesting, because that's what he used to go by in WWE. Interesting. Huh. So Axel Dieter was a legend in German wrestling. Well, I don't know what his name was. So he's basically a Rey Mysterio situation where he's basically taken the name of, a family member, but it's not his real name. So Axel Dieter Jr., Walter are here again on a different chapter 42, to take on the London riots. So like I said, it's the debut of this version of Walter, which will go on to be a major, major factor in Progress. I don't know how much of a factor Axel Dieter Jr. is in Progress. I hope a big one, because watching this man, I mean, even when I watch him nowadays, it's like, dude, this dude's so good. He's so good. He's got the look. He's got the ability, really good technical. I'm watching him here. It's like, this is kind of like if William Regal was more athletic. You know what I mean? That's kind of what Ludwig Kaiser is to me. So good. He's got great facials, a great jawline. Just so handsome. I just want to kiss him. So we got Imperium coming out. The debut of the symphony music that they come out to this day, or at least the intro nowadays. But you know the music, right? The classic Imperium music. They come out here. And they're facing off against the London Riots here in Chapter 42. A solid match. The Riots, who beat the Kings of the North with a slingshot spear. Axel has this scouted, counters the slingshot spear into a Regalplex. I think it's James Davis, Axel Dieter. Hits him with a Regalplex, and then immediately tosses him into Walter, who locks him into a sleeper hold for the submission. James Davis passes out. So Ringkampf debut as a tag team here in Progress. Come out with the win over the London Riots. And that's a pretty big deal in Progress. Like I said, the Riots are a staple of the company. It's a big deal. Former champions. It's a big deal to beat the Riots. So Ringkampf, hopefully I'm saying that right. Ringkampf looks really good here. Dominant win. Not dominant win. It was pretty back and forth. It was a fun match, but ultimately it was a very decisive win. And a welcome addition to the tag team division. That's been a big gripe of mine, is that the tag team division in Progress is pretty shallow, but there's a lot of strides made in these 4 chapters to amend that. And that is represented by this next match that we're going to talk about here, sticking with new faces. We're still talking about Ringkampf, but they are facing at Chapter 43. They face off against the South Pacific Power Trip, the team of TK Cooper and Travis Banks. So I want to shout out the South Pacific Power Trip, or SPPT, I guess we'll call them. They're kind of a goofy act. Like TK Cooper and Dahlia Black is their manager. All right, I guess she's also the girlfriend of TK Cooper. They're the guy. Their deal is they obnoxiously like make out and are fucking gross. Coming to the ring, you have Travis Banks is there. They're all New Zealand guys and gals, so that's their tie to one another. Travis Banks is really fun to watch. Just a really explosive dude. They've been kind of a goofy act up to this point, but they made some strides here. They had a couple matches in these chapters, and this one in particular, SPPT versus Ringkampf, Chapter 43, probably the best match of these 4 chapters. Which is crazy to say. I mean, you got Ospreay versus Adam Cole. You got Jimmy Havoc versus Ospreay. You got Marty Scurll versus Jimmy Havoc. Pete Dunne, Zack Sabre Jr. I mean, there's a lot of talent on these shows. But this match was probably... It was great for a variety of reasons, which I'll talk about, which is what our wrestling podcast is. First of all, this finally feels like proper Walter. Walter's been pretty good up to this point. Had a pretty good match with Chris Hero. Has had pretty good matches with Rampage Brown. The whole Atlas tournament deal, right? Like he's had a pretty good showcase so far. This feels like fucking Walter, dude. Volta. That's what it is. Before he was Walter. Now he's Volta. I mean, the chops. Commentary did a great job, by the way, at highlighting how impactful the chops were. These big boots that Walter's throwing out. Like, you see it nowadays, right? We all know who Gunther is, but Walter here, he's finally coming into his own. Feels like a spectacle. Feels like an attraction. On top of Axel Dieter Jr., who's also awesome, like we talked about. So these two as a team, this match made me want to see more tag team matches with Gunther and Kaiser, because they're a great team, a fun team. Nowadays, they're like almost the same size. But here you have like the powerhouse of Walter, the slender man build of Axel Dieter Jr. You had the technical athleticism of Axel, the powerhouse and the striking of Walter. It just meshed so well. And against Travis Banks and TK Cooper, Travis Banks is very strike heavy, kind of martial arty, but also a lot of technical and suplexy type of stuff. TK Cooper is very charismatic, but he also has I think he has the best scissors kick I've ever seen in my life. He'll be like, because a lot of him is charisma and character. He comes out in the goofy dungarees. He's got the hair. He's making out with his gal. But then, like I said, he's busting out like this crazy axe kick, some fun suplexes and strikes, a lot of double team maneuvers between both teams. Was very fun. I mean, this match just had a lot of tag team elements. You have your miscommunications between both teams that lead to their downfalls temporarily. You got double team maneuvers, like I mentioned. Guys getting in position to break up pins. Non-stop action is what this match is. And I've said it a bunch of times on this podcast. A good tag team match is when it's a tag team match. Not just a series of singles matches. Not just 4 guys taking turns having singles matches. This was a tag team match. High energy. Crowd was into it. Every person in this match looked awesome. I mean, the top rope came loose at some point. It didn't pop off, but you could see it start to sag just based on Walter's sheer girth, hitting those ropes over and over again, hitting big boots and lariats. And also, I should mention Imperium or Ringkampf. They're kind of playing the baby faces here, which is very interesting to see. You never really see that nowadays, or even back then in WXW. I think they're the major heel group over there at this point. Also, by the way, Axel, I think at this point is the world champion, which is a funny dynamic switch. How Axel is like the main guy and Walter's, the other one. So very interesting stuff here. But like I said, Ring Camp, they're playing the baby faces, and that was another thing that was very eye-opening, is that how good they were at playing the baby faces. Very explosive. Axel's doing all the high flying stuff, the suicide dives to the outside. Walter teases some dives to the outside, but I don't believe he actually ends up hitting it. But the crowd wanted it. The crowd wanted it bad. TK Cooper does this crazy spiral tap to the outside and ends up hitting his head on the back of a chair ringside. In the ring, Ring Camp hits a European bomb, but Dahlia Black distracts the ref, and Walter sees her and boots the shit out of her. Good God. I'm so accustomed to women managers, the whole women-men dynamic, how the man can't hit the woman. Walter he's having none of that malarkey. He just clocks her right in the kisser with a big boot. Axel's in the ring, lots of fire. Catches a crossbody from Travis Banks into a air raid crash, which it was. So you know what the air raid crash is, or the white noise, whatever you want to call it. You have the guys on your back, basically, head facing the ground, and then you drive them down. Banks comes off the second rope for a crossbody. The way Axel catches him, he doesn't catch him on his shoulders and then shift him into the position. No, he just catches him into the air raid crash position, which is so impressive. So seamless. Axel follows this up. He goes for a suplex onto Travis Banks, but TK trips him up, holds his feet as Banks pins him in the ring and gets the win. Classic heel victory here. The South Pacific power trip ends up getting the win over Ring Camp, which, still pretty new to the Progress audience, but still felt like a big deal. And especially after the quality of match that this was, huge moment for this team. And so the tag team division comes out of this looking really healthy. I mean, the power trip get a big win here. Great performance. Walter looks like a monster. Axel looked really good. And just two teams that would add very different textures to the existing tag team division. So I'm looking forward to see how that shakes out. But yeah, probably my match of these 4 chapters here for sure. Great stuff. And one more new face. One more new face, everybody. Can you guess? Nope, you can't. A man that has never appeared in Progress up to this point. Finn Balor. Prince Devitt has, of course, popped up in Progress before, but Finn Balor. Now, in this timeline, this is fresh off of him winning the Universal Championship in WWE, and then obviously getting injured, having to relinquish, et cetera, et cetera. So he's still injured at this point, so he's not cleared to compete. Well, he's not cleared to wrestle, but he can still compete. How's he going to compete? Hardest part of the ring? Well, let me tell you. Musical chairs. Musical chairs, everybody. I don't have notes on it. He plays musical chairs with the crowd. It's fun. The crowd was stoked to see him. I'm pretty sure this was when WWE was in the UK for the tournament, so he might have just been around, whatever the hell. But it was cool to see Finn Balor, like under his WWE name with his music, and after winning the championship, like he's a staple in WWE at this point. So to see him come back to Progress, where we saw him, several chapters ago facing Jimmy Havoc for the Progress title, it was cool to see. So cool to see Finn Balor here. Not a lot to say about that. It was musical chairs. It was silly. It was fun. We like to have fun here. But it's not fun. We've been having a lot of fun so far on this program. Let's get a little down here. Let's bring it down. Let's get a little sad. Why are we sad? Well, let me tell you. The Origin. The Origin, everybody. The faction comprised of Nathan Cruz, Zach Gibson, Ligero, and Dave Mastiff. Can't even say it. The Origin is no more. Fuck. Yeah. Here I am on the road again. Oh, I hope they don't take that music away. Just such a great entrance, such a great act. But there are no more, and the story is just. Let me tell you. This all starts. There's an Origin civil war brewing here, ladies and gentlemen. It all starts on chapter 40 with an Atlas title match. Of course, the champion Rampage Brown. He had an open challenge. He issued an open challenge, and who accepts? Well, none other than Banter Claws. Banter Claws, everybody. It's December. Dave Mastiff comes out dressed as Santa. He's got the red pants, the black boots, the suspenders. He has a hat. Not a Santa hat. We might have a Santa hat in the beginning. Actually, hold on. Is this when he has... No, he does have the Santa hat. I'm sorry. He has a different hat later. We'll talk about that later, I was getting confused. So Dave Mastiff, Banter Claws versus Rampage Brown. It's pretty much what you expect. Two beefy boys slapping meat, lariats, big suplexes on each guy, rattling the ring. Ultimately, Rampage wins with a pile driver. Now, the story here, it was a fine match. It was whatever. But the story here is Nathan Cruz. Nathan Cruz is ringside with Dave Mastiff. Ligero is also there. Now, obviously, Dave Mastiff is having a bit of fun. You know, he's a bit of a rabble rouser. He's into the shenanigans here. He's playing to the crowd, having a good time on this holiday season. Ligero is eating it up too. He's playing along with him. I think he might have some Christmas garb on him. I don't quite remember. Nathan Cruz, first ever Progress champion. He's all business. He's wearing the black. I think he has black pants on or whatever the hell. He's just dressed in pedestrian clothes. He does not approve of this tomfoolery. He sees banter clause and he's like, "What you doing, mate?" Origin are former champions. They want those titles back, and now we got Mastiff and Ligero who have formed the banter edition of the Origin, and on the other side you got Nathan Cruz and Zach Gibson, the serious edition, I guess, of the Origin. So we got a bit of an NWO Wolfpack black and white situation going on here. So Dave Mastiff and his shenanigans, he loses his Atlas title match, but then the next chapter we have a tag team match. The Origin, represented here by Ligero and Nathan Cruz. So they haven't broken up yet, right? And by the way, I should say on the Banter Clause match, after the match, Dave Mastiff offers Nathan Cruz some candy. Nathan Cruz takes it and throws it in his face. So we got a lot of hostility brewing here, but it hasn't quite come to a fever pitch yet. The next chapter, Ligero and Nathan Cruz are teaming. Now Ligero and Dave Mastiff is ringside. Dave Mastiff, by the way, Origin's facing off against FSU, the team of Eddie Dennis and Mark Andrews. The Origin, they got Dave Mastiff ringside. This is where I was getting confused earlier. This is the match where Dave Mastiff has the hat. You know, the classic, like, it's a hat with beer on it, and then there's like a tube going to your mouth. You drink the beer out of the hat. You know the deal. So Dave Mastiff, he's having fun with the audience. Ligero's also joining them, playing into the chants. Big thumbs up. That's like their new hand gesture now. Thumbs up to everybody. Having fun. Nathan Cruz, who's teaming with Ligero here, is like, "Can you focus on the fucking match, you goddamn Mexican?" This match is banter heavy. There's a chicken fight that breaks out at some point where Dave Mastiff gets in the ring and puts Ligero on his shoulders against Eddie Dennis, and Mark Andrews are on the other side. They do like lockups while they're on each other's shoulders. It's fun. It's fun. A lot of comedy in this match. It breaks down into a pretty good match, though. But ultimately, FSU gets the win because Ligero and Nathan Cruz are bickering. Cruz is on the apron. Eddie Dennis runs Ligero into Cruz, knocking him off the apron, and rolls up Ligero and gets the win out of nowhere. So FSU wins. But more importantly, the Origin loses here due to the bickering and due to the miscommunication between Ligero and Nathan Cruz. And still not happy. Nathan Cruz is still not happy with these two. The banter edition, the crowd loves him. Nathan Cruz does not. But now we have built to this point, Chapter 43, Thunder Bastard. There's a lot to talk about in this match. But I would say the Origin is probably the main takeaway here. So we'll walk through the match. But this culminates into the end of the Origin, basically. So if you have not witnessed a Thunder Bastard match, or if you have not heard me recap one, I believe this is the third or fourth one. A Thunder Bastard match is an 8-man gauntlet style elimination match. So 2 men start, and people come out every, I forget if it's like 2 minutes or whatever it is, and you eliminate people by pinfall, submission, or DQ. So it's basically a Royal Rumble, but, just regular pinfall submission style, and it's only 8 guys. And the winner gets a title shot at some point. So those are the stakes. And this occurs on Chapter 43, and the contestants are Dave Mastiff, Marty Scurll, Mark Andrews, Nathan Cruz, Zach Gibson, Trent Seven, Sebastian, and Jack Sexsmith. So we'll rattle through this relatively quick. Marty Scurll and Mark Andrews start. Which, by the way, this is the debut, or it might have been 41. It's new. Marty's new music, which is probably the music you associate him with. The woo woo, don't you, like the slow, like piano music, like. So it's funny to hear like people don't know who it is when the music hits. I was like, who the fuck is that? And then they pop when he comes out. So So Marty and Mark Andrews start. No eliminations occur. Trent Seven gets in. Then it's Jack Sexsmith, which Jack Sexsmith is like, dude. So if you listen to the Apron Bump podcast, you know I like a good amount of shenanigans, tomfoolery. I have a pretty, high threshold for what I can take watching wrestling. As far as comedy and silliness, I generally love it, right? Jack Sexsmith. He had a match against Sebastian at, I believe, Chapter 41, where he did a stink face on Sebastian. Where he like pulled his trunks down where it's just his bare ass. Giving him the stink face, which whatever, that's fine. Sebastian like rolls out to the outside. Camera pans on Jack Sexsmith. Camera pans back to Sebastian. And he has poop on his nose. Lots of poop. Lots of brown on his nose after this stink. So basically what I'm saying here, and there's more in this match that's like, I don't know, man. I guess they're capitalizing on, he's a part of the LGBT community at this point. He's an icon for them, which I'm all for, right? But it's just so on the nose and it's such a caricature. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I'm not super into it, but we'll talk about more as we go through this match. But back to this match, Sexsmith comes in, he cleans house, which by the way, it's weird to see him in this spotlight. A Thunder Bastard match for a world title shot. After that, the pastor, William Ever, comes out. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but the Sebastian, there's a lot of tangents in this match, which we'll touch on a bunch of different things. So if you recall, Pastor William Ever knocked out he legit knocked out Sebastian at, what was it, Chapter 37, whatever the big O2 show was. So they were unable to have their match because it was a legit serious situation at the time. They capitalize on this a few chapters later. Sebastian threatens to sue the pastor if he doesn't become his slave. He's gonna sue him for assault. So basically the pastor he has to do whatever Sebastian says because he's gonna get sued otherwise. So Pastor comes, because Pastor was the original contestant here. He comes out, but then Sebastian comes out, takes a spot, and Sebastian is now in the match. Pastor's still ringside. Sebastian gets in the ring and everybody, Marty, Mark Andrews, Trent Seven, they all leave. They're like, I don't even want to be in a match with you. This is ridiculous. As Sebastian is like, where are you guys going? Jack Sexsmith rolls up Sebastian and eliminates him right away. So Sebastian's eliminated. But Sebastian attacks Sexsmith after he's eliminated. Hits this really fucking sick spinning unprettier. So think of an unprettier, but you do like a 360. It's sick. It was really clean looking. I've seen guys like Leo Rush do this and it's kind of wonky, but this was perfect. It was so good. Tries to beat up Jack Sexsmith with a chair, but the pastor stops him from doing so. Sebastian says, what are you doing? You're my servant. Get out of my way. Sebastian slaps the pastor. Pastor, right hand to Sebastian, knocks him out. He's done. He's had enough. He's had enough of Sebastian. It's over. This partnership's over. Sue me for all I care. So Pastor leaves. Sebastian eventually comes to and leaves. He's out of here. Match gets back underway. Zach Gibson comes out. He's in the match. It's been a while since we've seen him. It's been, a few months since he's appeared in Progress. So to a chorus of boos, Zach Gibson grabs the mic, does his shtick, soon to be recognized. You know the whole deal, right? Crowd is just raining boos on Zach Gibson. If you hate Zach Gibson, stand up. That whole chant, they're doing the whole thing. Mark Andrews interrupts his soliloquy with a plancha to the outside. They start going at it. Nathan Cruz comes in. So now we got Nathan Cruz and Zach Gibson, 2 Origin members in here. Then Dave Mastiff comes in, who technically, I guess, is still an Origin member at this point. So 3 Origin members in a row. Gibson's trying to be the peacemaker between Nathan Cruz and Dave Mastiff because they're not getting along. We got banter versus non-banter. Zach Gibson's trying to be the peacemaker. Dave Mastiff looks at both of them, gives them both a thumbs up, and then a thumbs down, double clothesline, lays out Nathan Cruz and Zach Gibson. Origin has imploded. The Origin is over. By the way, the crowd chants Bantista, which I think is funny. Marty sees this. He's like, oh, Dave. Marty's giving him the thumbs up. Dave gives him the thumbs up because that's all Dave. Dave's just here to have a good time. He gives Marty the thumbs up, but then Marty takes his thumb and then breaks it. Just ooh. Brutal stuff. Marty goes for the chicken wing onto Dave Mastiff. But then as he's about to lock it in, Trent from behind rolls up Marty's skull and gets the elimination. Whew. Big time elimination. So Marty's out of here. Dave Mastiff clears house. Suicide dive onto a pile of bodies on the outside. Hot stuff from Dave Mastiff here. But then we get back to the Origin debacle. Zach Gibson and Nathan Cruz. Double lung blower to Dave Mastiff for the 1-2-3. So they eliminate Dave Mastiff. Mark Andrews with a brain buster and a standing shooting star press to Trent Seven for the 1-2-3. Trent Seven is out of here. Jack Sexsmith, who has been laid out for a while, he's back. He's got 2 condoms on his hands, otherwise known as Mr. Kako. Double cock. All right. My note here is double Kako ass to mouth on Origin. Double Kako ass to mouth on Origin. So Sexsmith gets in with his condoms on his fingers, puts his fingers up the respective asses of Gibson and Cruz, and then a traditional Mr. Kako to the throat of both of these gentlemen, and is able to lock Jack Sexsmith. He locks in a crossface, but that's not what he calls it. He locks in the crippler cockface onto Nathan Cruz for the tap out. That's what commentary called it. So that is a real move. That is the real name. The crippler cockface eliminates Nathan Cruz. So now we just got Jack Sexsmith, Zach Gibson, and Mark Andrews left. Zach Gibson hits a lung blower to Sexsmith. Sexsmith kicks out at 1. Hulks up. Double Kako Hulk up. Still has the condoms on his fingers, by the way, throughout this entire match. Locks in the crippler cockface to Zach Gibson. Gibson escapes and hits Jack Sexsmith with a twisting brainbuster, which I think he calls the Helter Skelter, and eliminates Jack Sexsmith. So now we're just down to Gibson and Mark Andrews. Gibson gets back on the mic, continues his shtick as he's beating the shit out of Mark Andrews, soon to be recognized as world's number 1. Zach Gibson, Liverpool's number 1. That whole thing, right? Gets back to the action. Good back and forth stuff between both these guys. High flying, brawling. Love that dynamic. Gibson keeps going for the Shankly Gates, which is an arm-based submission. Ultimately goes for the Helter Skelter onto Andrews, but Andrews counters it into a stun dog millionaire, goes to the top rope, shooting star press, hits it. 1, 2, 3. Mark Andrews is your winner. Mark Andrews is your Thunder bastard. Mark Andrews has quietly become, like, by far the most decorated guy in Progress, by the way. He's a Thunder bastard winner. He's a Natural Progression Series winner. A tag team champion, a world champion. Now all he has to do is bulk up and win the Atlas title, and he'll have won the whole gambit. So, love me some Mark Andrews, so this was fun to see. It was a silly match, but there's a lot of story within it. So, Mark Andrews gets the win. Good for him. Thunder bastard. What else? Hey, let's talk about, speaking of titles, speaking of the Atlas title, let's talk about it. So we already talked about Rampage versus Banter Claws. Rampage beat Dave Mastiff to retain. But on chapter 42, the main event of Chapter 42, actually, which is fun. We got Rampage Brown defending the Atlas title against Matt Riddle. Yeesh. This was pretty good. This was pretty fun stuff. By the way, it's so fun. Like Rampage comes out. He comes out to I Will Be Heard by Hatebreed, which is just, guitar heavy, yelling. I will be heard. Like, it's the crowd's amped. He's shaking the ropes. It's so hype. And then Matt Riddle comes out to and then Matt Riddle comes out to a Regulate instrumental by Warren G. It's just like this chill hip hop. Is like, hey, you know how Matt Riddle is, the bro, the chill, just the juxtaposition between that and Rampage Brown, who's just out to kill people. Fun stuff. And it was a fun matchup. Obviously, you got Matt Riddle, whose MMA influence is very prominent here, especially here. He's still pretty early in his career, so he's still like in the transition period. But I kind of like that because he has a very distinct style. Obviously, all the kicks, the strikes, the submissions, but also suplexes, and able to suplex Rampage Brown all over the place, which was very impressive. You got Rampage, though, ultimately using his power to overpower Riddle in a lot of this match. But then you got Riddle coming back with a flying armbar. So he's trying to take down this guy limb by limb. Riddle hits a huge exploder on the Rampage, a bunch of roundhouse kicks to the chest, one to the back that Matt Riddle hurts his foot. So he's like selling his foot because of just Rampage's girthy back, I guess. Riddle eventually comes back with a Fisherman Buster. Riddle hits a flurry of strikes. But then it's like he's just pop. But then Rampage just one big lariat just cleans his clock. Riddle fights back with a bro to sleep and a leaping tombstone for a 2 count. But then Matt Riddle, he's like, all right, enough of this shit. Hits Rampage with a bunch of brutal hammer fists to the back of the head, which would be illegal in UFC, but not in Progress. Hammer fists to the back of the head, elbows to the head, stomps to the head. Nothing particularly flashy, just like MMA style, like TKO, just bop, 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 stomp, 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 and then just pins him and gets the 1, 2, 3. So we got a new Atlas champion, Matthew Riddle. Very unique finish. You watch it and it's like, it's kind of anticlimactic, but it's also, there's like this sense of realism and just, it felt like, it felt authentic, and especially with Matt Riddle's style, the MMA guy, like that's how you win matches, just by ultimately TKOing the guy with a barrage of strikes, and then just he's done, which is what this match was. So Matt Riddle wins, and the new Atlas champion. And yeah, I really enjoyed his MMA style that he brought here, because ultimately in WWE, it was very like, he still had that style, but it became very sports entertainified, for lack of a better term. But here he's just so raw, still fresh out of UFC at this point. So very fun to see. Was a big Matt Riddle guy back in the day. So it's good to see him in this period. And I think he'll be sticking around for a while. New Atlas champion. Love to see it. Love to see it. Also love Rampage Brown, though. So I hope he sticks around and does something significant going forward. A few more things here. We got to touch on the women. Well, all right, easy. Speaking out. We got to touch on the women here. A little update. We got an update on the women. Probably a better way to put it. So we're still working our way towards crowning the first ever women's Progress champion. And this is through the Natural Progression Series, which is a single elimination tournament. It's still kind of unclear how many people are in it. Because before Chapter 40, we already had Jenny and Nixon Newell moving on to the next round. But we also have Toni Storm beating Bea Priestley, otherwise known as Blair Davenport, to move on. Alex Windsor beats Livy Grace. Laura DiMatteo beats Chakra. So as of right now, the field is Jenny, Nixon Newell, Toni Storm, Alex Windsor, Laura DiMatteo. As far as the women's matches on these shows, nothing particularly stuck out to me. Windsor and Livy Grace was not very good, unfortunately. I don't know if Livy Grace went on to do anything else, but I don't think she was made for this job. Laura DiMatteo came out with more of like an MMA kind of aesthetic to her, with the cornrows and the wrist tape and stuff like that. Probably one of her best showings. as a standalone because she's been so embroiled like with the thing with Ginny, and so she's starting to stand out on her own here, which I liked. And she beat Chakra. Is that her name? Hold on, let me make sure I have this right. Shakara, sorry, not Chakra. Shakara is who she beats. Not too familiar with the Shakara, but she looked pretty good too. She had a lot of she had this scowl when she came out. She just radiated I don't know if you call it charisma or just like heat or what, but she was pretty fun to watch, kind of a powerhouse, kind of had a power lifter type build, if I can say that. But ultimately she falls to LDM. Toni Storm beats Bea Priestley in a fine match, I guess. But really the women's match that stuck out to me wasn't even a tournament match. It was on chapter 42? Chapter 41. Toni Storm versus Kaylee Ray, which if you're not familiar, Kaylee Ray is Alba Fire. So two ladies that are in big prominent positions at this point in time as of recording. Toni Storm. So previously, Toni Storm has appeared in Progress before, but it was very early. It was a rough draft of Toni Storm, kind of just like almost like an EDM kind of thing. Like she was kind of like a female Tyler Bate, where just no knee pads, boots, tights, all that stuff. So I have a big, stupid, fat ass. That's my character, right? But now here, Toni Storm has adopted the Toni that a lot of people probably were introduced to her from. The rocker, the glasses, the hats, the eye paint under the eye. Classic Toni Storm here. So a character shift for her, or at least like an aesthetic shift, but it really worked. Obviously, that's what would bring her to WWE ultimately. But and Kaylee Ray also, we need to get Alba Fire in a bigger position. I mean, her and Isla are a good team, but we need to get them more in the thick of things, man, because Kaylee Ray is so fucking good. So was Toni Storm. This match was by far the best women's match of these chapters. Just presence from both of them. Kaylee Ray comes out with this really cool, like, I guess it's like EDM music, but it's like maybe I'll add a clip here. I don't know. And Toni Storm comes out with music that really accompanies her gimmick as well. And then the bell rings, and then I'm reminded that these are just two fucking great wrestlers. I mean, really fun chain wrestling in the beginning of this match. They do the double bridge spot, which is you don't see that from the women a lot in this period. So that was really fun. Kaylee goes for the gory special, but it's countered into a sunset flip by Toni Storm, which prompts a bunch of close near falls, counters of roll-ups. 1, 2, kick out, 1, 2, kick out. Just really snug, stiff, just counter wrestling here, which is a breath of fresh air for the women's division at this point. Toni hits a bridging German for a 2 count. Kaylee counters a spinning kick right into a gory bomb for a 2 count. Just a slick transition. Toni with a bridging muscle buster for a 2 count. Kaylee Ray goes for another gory bomb and hits it. Follows it up with a super kick and then a swanton bomb, but delays the pin. She got cocky after hitting that chain of moves. So when she goes for the pin, it's only a 2 count. But then Kaylee locks in a guillotine, but then Toni powers out of it into a really impressive deadlift suplex out of a guillotine position. And ultimately, Toni wins with a pile driver. So Toni gets the 1, 2, 3, which makes sense. One of the favorites, I would say, to be the first ever women's champion here in Progress. So just really good stuff, man. I mean, both women move really well. They're athletes. The wrestling looks good. It's stiff. It's snug. It's tight. There could have been a little bit more selling. There was a lot of like big moves that kind of just, it was like one move after the other kind of thing, but it worked for what this was. So, but the crowd was into it. So who am I to say? But probably the best women's Progress match in history up to this point, maybe, I would say. I know Jenny and Pollyanna had a few good ones, but I might put this one at the top, honestly. Kaylee Ray, Toni Storm, really good stuff. Really good stuff. It makes sense to see where they are now, based on where they were at this point, end of 2016. So fun stuff there. So let's close this out with kind of the world title scene, I guess. And that all starts, even though Pete Dunne is the champion, we'll touch on him to close out. But we got to touch on this match. because just it's the significance that it holds based on the history of Progress up to this point. It's a number one contenders match for the Progress title, and this occurs on Chapter 40, a street fight. Jimmy Havoc versus Marty Scurll. First of all, Marty comes out. He comes to the ring. Jimmy Havoc comes out. He comes onto the stage. He has a jacket, like trench coat deal. It's closed. He opens up his jacket and unveils an axe. He's going to murder Marty Scurll, I guess, was his intention. But thank God security confiscates his axe and takes it to the back. But the brawl starts right on the stage there. They're brawling immediately. It's just in the crowd, around the ringside area. They fight back to the bar. They fight backstage. It's everywhere, throwing each other into chairs. There's staple guns. There's tables. There's a pile of chairs in the ring. Probably like 24 chairs in the ring. At one point, Havoc gets thrown off the stage through a table, gets thrown in the ring. Marty makes the pin. Havoc kicks out at 1. Ultimately hits a Rainmaker onto Marty. Marty kicks out at 2. Marty fights back, hits a tombstone for a 2 count. But the finish comes when thumbtacks are brought into the equation, or drawing pins, as you Brits like to say. Havoc hits a Death Valley driver onto Marty into this pile of tacks, and then follows it up with an acid Rainmaker for the win. So Havoc beats Scurll to become the number one contender. A fun match. I mean, so Havoc is number one contender and continues his story, which is pretty interesting at this point. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this, the Jimmy Havoc story continues to be one of the most engaging parts of Progress. Because like I mentioned, Jimmy Havoc, he was screwed out of the title at Chapter 39, where Pete Dunne won. Then he wins this number one contenders match against Marty Scurll. So now he has a title shot upcoming. But then at Chapter 41, him and Will Ospreay had a match where Will Ospreay turned on him and Paul Robinson teamed up. And now Havoc has 2 more guys going to war with him. And ultimately, he just wants his title back, and he has a bunch of guys he wants to murder to get there. So, and he does have a match with Pete Dunne coming. But before that, we just got to sink into this Pete Dunne and just the entirety of British Strong Style. We got to sink into this. Because Pete Dunne's the world champion. British Strong Style, they're running Progress at this point. So originally, before Pete won the world title, Pete Dunne and Trent Seven were the tag team champions. So I guess by Pete winning the world title, they had to vacate the title. I don't know. So they vacated the tag team titles. So they crowned a new tag team champion at Chapter 41. British Strong Style, represented by Trent Seven and Tyler Bates, versus the leaders of the new school, represented by Marty Scurll and Zack Sabre Jr., versus the London Riots. I mean, just a star-studded match here. Really fun stuff. Non-stop action. It's one of those matches where it's like impossible to take notes. It was just insane. One thing of note is that Trent and Tyler walk out because they still got the fucking shields, right? Trent and Tyler, because they were the previous champions, they come out with these shields and they throw the shields on the stage and just walk away from them. They want belts. Every time they come out with these shields, they throw them down and they pantomime to their waist saying, "We want belts." So being very disrespectful. Also, I should say the British Strong Style, just as a whole, all 3 of these guys, their mentality is that Progress is just a stepping stone to the big time. And they have a really good promo, which maybe I'll even include that here, because they could probably explain it better than I can.
Peter, Tyler, and Trent. This is British Strong Style. And at Graps of Wrath, we did exactly what we said we were going to do, didn't we? We delivered on every level. And we walked out with the tag team championships and the Progress World title. And in no small thanks to you, Tyler. It was a decision that needed to be made, and I told you that you'd get the repayment for it. Did I not? Good, exactly. Mustache Mountain are now reformed under the beautiful banner of British Strong Style. So to you, Tyler, your payment for bearing with and just listening and understanding the business deal that needed to go down. It's just a matter of time. So now, Mustache Mountain, our Progress World Tag Team Champions. Peter.
The perception of the Progress title is that you're the best independent professional wrestler in the world. But to us three, it's just a ticket out of the independents. To you people, it signifies 10 years of hard work. 10 years of training in dojos, traveling around the world, trying to get better and better to be the best independent professional wrestler in the whole world. But to me, it's simply something to lean on when I sign a contract. And those tag shields, they're just stepping stones. They're stepping stones to Florida or Tokyo. The ethos of Progress Wrestling has always been British strong style. The problem with that is that the three men, the only three men that truly represent British strong style, we're leaving, and we're leaving with all of the titles.
No, fuck off. I need a piss.
So very, very Peaky Blinders, just watching it, but very good. I mean, because Pete, he says that the title's a stepping stone, but he also throws in the fact that, yeah, it's probably, everybody thinks because I hold this title that I'm the best wrestler in the independents, because that's what this means. So he's like shitting on the title, but he's also acknowledging that he's the best in the independents. So just a very strong promo there, really set up British strong style and what they're about. And so back to this three-way tag match. Very star-studded, but ultimately, Trent Seven hits a pile driver onto Zack Sabre Jr. and rolls him right into Tyler Bate, who hits him with a Gotch-style tombstone pile driver for the 1, 2, 3. So technically, they vacated the titles, I guess, but ultimately, British Strong Style walks out new/still the tag team champions. So they have the tag straps or the tag shields, I guess. So they have that locked down. But let's talk about the world title, why don't we? I've been teasing you. Let's get into it. We got 3 defenses of the title on these chapters. First, in chapter 40, we got Pete Dunne defending against Zack Sabre Jr. This match, man, I wanted to get into this match. 2 guys that I love watching. I'm wondering if just these 2 guys, like, I like them individually, but when they're facing each other, I think it might just be a tad too grapple fucky for me. It's like their styles are so similar that it makes it like, I don't know, man. It was 31 minutes, this match was. 31 minutes, and there was not a lot happening for like, I don't know, 26 of those minutes. Just a lot of slow submissions, which I could appreciate at a certain point, but the pacing of this match was not for me. Like I said, I wanted to get into it, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't. It was a fun ending stretch, though. Zach hits Pete with a penalty kick, but after this grueling match, he can't capitalize. They trade forearms in the middle of the ring and slaps. Like, it's really heating up. Zach hits Pete with a dragon suplex and a penalty kick again. Gets a 1-2 kick out. Good near falls here. Pete goes for an enziguri. Zach ducks. Zach gets right into a Gato clutch pin for a close 2 count. Flying triangles, cross arm bar, but Pete Dunne's able to fight out of this arm bar and hits the bitter end for the 1, 2, 3. So Pete beats Zack Sabre Jr., which is, I mean, ZSJ, even at this point, is a big deal in the wrestling scene. So it's a big win for Pete there. But like I said, the match kind of left some to be desired, I guess. Then chapter 42, right? 41, chapter 41. You got Pete Dunne defending against Fabian Eichner, otherwise known as Giovanni Vinci in WWE. A fun showcase. Fabian, I think, he appeared once in Progress. But just a super, he was in the Cruiserweight Classic. I can't exactly remember if he was in the NXT UK tourney. I don't think he was, but he's made a name for himself. I think he might even just be straight up signed with WWE at this point. But Fabian comes in. The juxtaposition between these two guys, the dynamic, you have Fabian doing all this fancy athletic stuff, the kip ups, headstands on the mat, but then Pete will just grab his nose to stop it. There was some fun stuff in this one. Fabian hits a really sick double jump springboard moonsault to the outside, throws in Pete into the ring, springboard DDT in the ring, a huge power bomb for a close 2 count. And then Fabian goes for another double jump moonsault, but misses, and Pete is able to hit the bitter end to capitalize on that and gets the 1, 2, 3. So Pete once again defends his title against Fabian Eichner. So we're starting to build a pretty good reign here so far. But after that match, Pete grabs the mic and he says, "See you all on the WWE network," and then just leaves, which is like furthering, it's a ticket out of the indies, et cetera, et cetera. Very reminiscent of old school CM Punk in Ring of Honor when he was about to leave for WWE. So, and that match here that we just talked about was right before the UK tournament. So he wasn't kidding. He wasn't kidding. He was going to be in WWE in a few weeks after that. So, but then his final defense, which is the final thing we'll talk about today. Chapter 43, Progress Championship is on the line. Pete Dunne defending against Jimmy Havoc. So we're tying this all together. British Strong Style. We've solidified this faction. Pete has solidified his reign so far, or he's at least in the process of doing so. Jimmy Havoc is on a war. He's at war on several fronts, but ultimately his main focus is getting that title back. So it's all come to a head here. Pete Dunne, Jimmy Havoc. Pretty good match. Maybe the best Pete Dunne match of these chapters, I would say. And a lot of it is set up even before the match, because Pete Dunne comes out. He never has the title around his waist. I don't even think he ever has the title around his shoulder. He comes out with the title in his mouth, comes out, and he keeps repeatedly, he'll take the title out of his mouth and just throw it on the floor. He doesn't give a shit about this title. It's a stepping stone, as you see. Drops it several times on the floor on his way to the ring. Before the bell rings, as Pete and Havoc are facing off, Trent tries to attack Havoc from behind, but ends up getting a Rainmaker for his troubles. Or no, I'm sorry, Trent actually tries to do a Rainmaker, but when he spins Havoc around, Havoc takes his other arm and grabs the title out of Pete's mouth, and he gets whipped back and clocks Trent in the head with his title, which is a very funny spot. But then the match gets underway. Havoc again kicks us right off with a really sick running Hurricane Rana to the outside, and then we move on, kind of reminiscent to the Ospreay match in a lot of ways. A lot of fighting around the ring, getting thrown into chairs. Pete doesn't even have his jacket off. He's still getting thrown into the crowd. Havoc hits a suicide Havoc hits a suicide dive into a DDT on the wood floor, which looked brutal. But Pete fights back at some point and starts biting the fingers of Jimmy Havoc, which draws blood, which is interesting. So Havoc's fingers are bleeding from all this biting. Pete slowly beats on Havoc with various submissions, beating up on the digits and the limbs of Havoc. At one point, both these guys are like biting each other's hands, getting a little kinky here. At some point, Pete hits a low blow on the Havoc and then hits him with a pedigree. Classic. Only gets a 2 count, though. Havoc fights back, hits an acid rainmaker onto Pete Dunne, goes for the pin, but Trent Seven pulls the referee. Jimmy Havoc hits a suicide dive on the Trent, gets back in the ring, hits Pete Dunne with another acid rainmaker, goes for the pin again, but once again, Trent is back up, and he just straight up gets in the ring and breaks it up. So, DQ finish for this main event world title match, which I'm, never stoked on, but I guess how the show closed, kind of made up for it, because that's not the end of the story here. because Pete retains his title here via DQ. But the story continues as Trent and Pete. By the way, Tyler's not here because he's the current, at this point, he's the current NXT UK champion. So Trent and Pete beat up on Jimmy Havoc with a chair. A couple chairs, actually. They actually throw in a bunch of chairs in the ring, and now there's a pile of chairs in the ring. Pete goes for another pedigree onto these pile of chairs, but out comes Flash Morgan Webster to make the save, who was injured several months ago, but is returning here. He walks out onto the stage, but he doesn't run to the ring yet because he still does not have the numbers. So out comes Mark Haskins onto the stage to join Flash Morgan Webster. Mark Haskins, of course, had to vacate his title due to neck injury. Surprised to see him back so soon. I mean, that was only 3 months ago at this point. So Haskins is back, I suppose. Him and Flash storm the ring. They clear house. They lock in tandem sharpshooter and guillotine onto British Strong Style. They get to the ropes and BSS skedaddles. Haskins grabs the mic. He says he's tired of the disrespect. He looks at Pete and he's like, you got something of mine, because ultimately Haskins was not beat for the title. So he's got a point. And he basically challenges British Strong Style to a 6-man tag at the next chapter. So it'll be Pete Dunne, Trent Seven, and Tyler Bate taking on Mark Haskins, Flash Morgan Webster, and Jimmy Havoc. And he closes out the show with, you want a war? Well, you fucking got one. So they set up chapter 44 pretty well. British Strong Style still looks strong, but we got 2 major injury returns here. Jimmy Havoc is still on the prowl for that title. Will him and Haskins come at odds? Who knows? But so a lot of intrigue set up for chapter 44 and onward. So that's how we close out chapter 43, and that's how we'll close out this episode of the Apron Bump. A lot going on this month. Again, I went longer than I anticipated, but there's just so much to talk about, and there's stuff I didn't even talk about. So, good stuff. Progress is still killing it at this point. Really hot period for British wrestling. We'll talk more about NXT UK and its effect on British wrestling in a later episode, because we're just at the beginning stages here. But yeah, not all positive for British wrestling, but I think they had good intentions ultimately. But again, we'll talk more about that in a later episode. But with that, that's about all Daddy has for you guys today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to like, rate, review, subscribe, all that shit. Check out my other Progress reviews. Check out my other reviews in general. Hop on another timeline if you haven't been caught up. And with that, I'll bid you all adieu. Have a happy Thanksgiving if you're listening to this beforehand. And if you're listening after, well, have a happy Boxing Day. No, that's after Christmas. I don't know. Just have a good day in general, I guess, whatever time of year it is. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm hard.
Yeah. And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started.